At the board. Anyway, good morning. Let me, what's going on here? Just taking a second. There we go. Live streaming on YouTube. Make sure that this is muted. And good morning, everybody. We're here with Bruce Rawles and Lynn Johnson, and we are reading Absence from Felicity by Kenneth Wapnick, PhD, and it is published by the Foundation for A Course in Miracles. And so I'm just really grateful to have you here, Bruce. What's up with you? Anything interesting going on in Bruce world?
Well, I'm kind of doing the last little sprint to close our web design and maintenance business down, except for a small handful, including a site that's near and dear to both of us, the ACIM Gather, which I'll still keep working on. I'm going to focus on course-related stuff. So there's a handful of course-related websites that will keep working on. And other than that, I'm going to focus on I've got a third book that I'm about to set out for review this morning, or to actually probably this afternoon, and working on a fourth book. And then we got some friends coming to visit for a couple of days this week, and just kind of enjoying a sunny Arizona holiday season. How about you?
Oh, I love that. What a great testament to, the the life we have that, I'm sure that you're going to have a lot more fun, even though I'm sure you're having a lot of fun now.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So,
We've had some wonderful clients, so it's
yeah,
been
it's
been
lovely.
a fun thing. Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, it's been cold here in Colorado, and we've been
And
having
cold here too.
it's chilly weather, but um, I love it. And it's really, it just is what it is, and I'm grateful for it. That's all I can say about that. So let's see here. Let me get this. I think we're going to back up because I think we kind of start in the middle of a story. Um, but how far? Let's see how far. Oh, yeah, this is kind of a long message that Jesus gave to Helen, um, that was not actually written in the text, although parts of it, as we read along, have been.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think maybe if we just pick up where we left off might be
okay, so you want to, let's see.
sure. I'll do the usual preface. Lynn Johnson and I are reading Absence from Felicity, the story of Helen Schuckman and her scribing of A Course in Miracles by Kenneth Wapnick, PhD. And we are about 60% through, according to your screen share on your digital version, page 298 of 492. And on the print version that I have in front of me, which I know there were several revisions, we're in the middle of page 310 in the print treeware version. So I'll pick up where we left off. And Ken comments before a message from Helen. On September 16th, in response to Helen's question, Jesus dictated the special message for Bill, similar to his earlier messages about Bill's need to accept who he really is as a son of God. And this it's in Q&A format. Question: why is Bill more depressed than usual? Answer: he is in a very deep sleep and much more resistant to waking than you are. The major problem with him is that his is a passive resistance, which implies a giving over of will. Pardon me. This always induces a state of resignation and therefore depression. Tell him that no one can resign from the sonship, since membership is not optional. That is so good. I'm gonna underline that. I love that. That's really humorous and inspiring. No one can resign from the sonship since membership is not optional. He has been looking for someone to take his will away because he thought it was the cause of his trouble. Since the Course has placed such persistent emphasis on will, and since he agrees with the emphasis, his past adjustment pardon me, is threatened. That is why he could not sleep. His past came to, quote, haunt him, unquote him because he is giving up the belief in ghosts. Tell him again not to be afraid of ghosts and remind him that he has no past. The return of his will is what he wants. No one can accept it but himself. You want to comment on that?
Let's see. Oh yeah, I am unmuted. Yeah, this is really interesting because first off, just to go back to what format wise, that this is something that Jesus just spontaneously um, talked to Helen about, asking a question and then giving her the answer, which is she's not saying, why is Bill more depressed? Jesus is saying, why is Bill more depressed? And then he's saying he's in a very deep sleep and much more resistant to waking than you are. Um, and that really as we've read so much about Helen's basic unwillingness, it cracks me up that
Well,
she's saying he's even more unwilling than you are.
well, at least at that point in that process, anyway,
Yes,
and
yes.
and it would seem that he's pointing out the specific ways in these very specific journal transcriptions that each of us have very specific ways that we avoid and resist and subvert and sabotage our peace. Um, so that's why the curriculum is highly individualized, meaning we get to look at how all the different things that we've projected onto the world that we need to forgive that are really in our own mind, and all those psychological, you know, specialties, if you will, and unique quirks that seem to allow us to avoid uh, our membership, as he was saying in the last paragraph. Uh, they're all unique, and so we all have a unique undo curriculum, but we're all headed to the same place in our mind, that of perfect peace, innocence, oneness, and pure non-duality. Even though we don't really grok what that is, um, that's what the course keeps telling us: is if you keep generalizing and looking at the insanity of the ego and forgiving yourself for believing that you chose it and has had all these horrific effects, eventually we're going to weary of that whole strenuous effort of maintaining a false identity and just drop it, and the peace will come flooding back in because that's our natural state. Right?
Absolutely. That's exactly the dynamic that works here.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Jesus is telling Helen that, Ken has a passive resistance going on because he's afraid of giving over his will, or
Uh-huh.
doesn't want to give over his will. And so he's thinking that he's being asked to give something up that he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't want to give up. But um, Jesus says, first off, that's not true. That you're not being asked for anything that you don't want to give up. But the reason that Bill is depressed is because he feels like he doesn't have a choice, and he's being kind of um, uh, waylaid into this role that he through his whole life, because in another group we're reading Never Forget to Laugh, the Carol
Uh-huh.
Dweck book about Bill Thetford, and through his whole life he was so resistant to being in the spotlight, to having anybody know who he was. He was a very shy guy. And he really felt like he was being asked to, step out of uh, this safe zone that he felt he was in. Um, but he also knew that he wanted to do that. So Jesus says he's been looking for someone to take his will away because he thought it was the cause of his trouble. It's like he would rather not think he had a choice and just be in this state where he's being really waylaid into, this role. But um, but he does recognize that his will is the key, and allowing his will to not be overtaken so much as to be adjusted, because he's already, he has made himself comfortable to an
Hmm.
extent in his own life through his these adjustments that he's done. But Jesus says that's why he couldn't sleep, because his past came to haunt him. All these fears that he had about uh, being forced into doing things that he didn't want to do, or being what he didn't want to be. All that stuff was uh, coming back to him and saying, I'm being taken again. This is, I don't have a choice here. But giving up the belief in ghosts, as Jesus says, um, is giving up the past and forgetting, what you think the past has done to you, and allowing yourself uh, to be adjusted in a way that is going to make him more helpful and give him more joy. But to remind him that he has no past, wow, that's really what we all want. Uh,
Hmm.
if we're really thinking about it, I would love to. In fact, when past thoughts come up, and start feeling sad and guilty and angry and whatever. Not so much anymore, but definitely I have been through long periods where dwelling in the past has made me uh, a very, very unhappy, um,
Oh,
and
sure. I think we can
guilty,
all relate to
feeling
that.
guilty. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, that's we want to forget about that stuff because it never happened in the first place. So
Hmm.
we want to return to the state where I rule my mind, which I have a kingdom which I alone can rule. um, and that is the will that that we want. We want to remember that. So
Hmm.
anyway,
Yeah. I thinking about, undoing the past, or realizing that the past has had no effect on our real identity. It seems like it's easy to think, well, gee, there's some things that we kind of have this nostalgic thought or feelings about, and thoughts or feelings, and then we realize, well, those really are my interpretations of completely neutral events if I'm looking at it with Holy Spirit's perspective. And I think it takes a lot of mind training really to get to where we do that consistently, rather than think, oh, gee, I'd love to recreate how I felt when X happened, or Y didn't happen. Um, and and yet the deeper ontological um, phenomena, if you will, is that we think we destroyed perfect oneness, and a manifestation of that in our minds, our split minds, is the idea that the world exists outside of us, and we pulled off this impossible crime for which we feel, hopelessly guilty. And the Holy Spirit, which is a symbol for the part of our mind that says, uh-uh, what if that didn't happen? It doesn't impose that thought on us. It basically just offers it consistently to us, that we could choose another way. We could choose once again, to see that all the things that seem to have happened to us in this world, or even just in our imagination, have never if impacted or affected our real identity. And the reason that's so challenging for us is, we've, for the most part, blocked off any semblance of recognition of our real identity, and even the reflections of that real identity, which are, the sameness in the world, or seem hard to come by sometimes. And yet that's really what the course is telling us. Just trust that process of forgiveness will take you all the way home. And that's why the course isn't as popular as so many other religious approaches, because they want to make the world real, and we want to have our cake and eat it too. We want to have our nightmare, and have our happy dreams too. The nightmare being all the stuff that we want to project onto the world. Well, anyway, I've rambled a bit.
No, I agree with you completely,
Yeah, yeah.
and it is that desire to maintain the ego self. That
Hmm.
I mean, it's so funny that you were talking like this because just this morning I was, I usually just lay in bed for like an hour before I get up and contemplate and talk to God and talk to Jesus and all that crazy stuff. And this morning what was coming to me was scenarios from younger days when when I felt very holy and very free and the experiences that I had um, with meditation groups and stuff when I was a teenager, etc. And how wonderful that made me feel, and trying to really look at how wonderful that time was, um, which and wishing that I felt that same freedom and exuberance now. And it made me laugh because then I was thinking, well, that it's still if it's here, it's here. It's never gone anywhere. I haven't changed. Nothing's gone wrong except for my own judgment of my circumstance or situation. And at that time I felt holy, and at this time I feel old and tired. Which I couldn't be either. I mean, I can't be any different than I ever was. So, what you were saying just really, it points to this is the world. I'm seeing the world that I want to see. I'm
Hmm.
just seeing the world that I want to see. And, if I want to see a world where everyone is holy, which I do in my mind, would be wonderful. If everyone we met was a saint and a holy being. Um, and the fact is, that is the case.
Hmm.
That
And it's not the body or the even the personality of the person
no,
that's holy. It's the being that is outside space and time, outside that whole dream of space and time, that is the holiness that the course is reminding us of and is also addressing. Because if we've tried to make the course about the Bruces and the Lynns and the your name here's of the world, it ain't gonna work. And
no,
and that's it's such an easy thing to fall into. And so we need to be really gentle and patient with ourselves when we catch ourselves trying to do that and say, oh, there I go again, trying to make it about Bruce's awakening. Well, the course is really telling us, so like so many pure non-dual teachings that have, the few that have been known and probably countless more unknown to us in our current culture that suggest that the self that we think we are um, is really a misunderstanding, a very extreme misunderstanding of our real identity, and it couldn't possibly be a separate self in truth, even though we have seemingly have countless examples and bits of evidence that would tell us that we pulled off this impossible crime of separation. We just have to walk into the bathroom, look at the mirror, and say, "Wow, there's a separate self." And if I'm identified with that, I think I pulled off this crime, right?
yeah. Yeah, that is quite true. And it's someone mentioned that they were told by their therapist to go and stand and look in the mirror and say, "I love you, I love you, I love you," and they couldn't really do that. It was hard for them to love that what they saw in the mirror. Um,
Uh-huh.
but it's this is the instrument. I love my instrument. I was thinking yesterday because I've been really sick since I had COVID. I've had pneumonia. It's like a lingering thing. So, I've been thinking I was going to die on a few occasions. It got that radical, and thinking, I don't want to leave this. I'm really, I'm enjoying this form and enjoying this learning and growing communication, all that kind of stuff. And it's not that I, don't want to lose it, but I'm having a good time with it, so I want to keep I want to keep doing it. But the big part of what what I'm being shown to do is this, and all these lessons that we're doing right now about the lilies of forgiveness and forgive your brother and see your brother innocent
Mhm.
and all that stuff is really bringing me to a point where I'm recognizing that uh, uh, that we are that this I am the sonship. I am the sonship. That evil person I think is a politician. That's me. Those
Mhm.
are my wishes. That's I put that false nose on that witch.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah.
And seeing that, I mean, it really has brought, this idea of, possibly dying that I've been, you always think about it, but you never really think about it, or I've never really thought about it. Um, until just recently. And, just the whole possibility of not being here in this form anymore and dealing with, helping the world or all the things that I think I can do. I'm really looking at that like, my part is my part no matter what form I'm in.
Mhm.
So, and I know that, the course even tells us that, that people who have left this plane or realm of existence are still here, which is kind of a different than what mostly you think about the course, because you think, well, the ego doesn't survive, but the teachers who are have passed from this world are still helping us. I imagine Ken Wapnick still being here helping us.
Oh,
Hugo
absolutely. Yeah, I
still helping
feel
us.
his presence daily. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, this idea of, I'll be gone somewheres. Well, no, I'll still be here, but I'll be less restricted by, other things, more restricted by maybe the lack of direct communication with people, but definitely less restricted by the body and all the work of it. So, I don't I came over that or overcame the whole idea of it and thinking, either way, I'm still here. So,
Hmm.
and what I am is here to be truly helpful. Is that prayer, which, I've say that so many times every day. I'm here only to be truly helpful. I'm here to represent him, the Christ who sent me. I don't have to worry about what to say or what to do because he who sent me will direct me. And I'm content to be here wherever he wishes, knowing he's here with me. So I am healed. And I let him teach me to heal. We're healing the rift of the sonship or the separation, the thought of separation every day by the
Hmm.
work that we do. So, I'm really, very content now. So, I could come or go, which is pretty cool.
And considering we, in truth, have never been where we think of as here, that and it sounds like a nice theory, but it takes a good while and probably quite a few lifetimes, I suppose. And we've probably been working on it for quite a few lifetimes too, that to get to where we realize that, what happens or doesn't happen in this world couldn't possibly make a difference for what we really are.
No, it
Yeah.
can't. It can't. And, the sooner we get over the idea that it can, the more likely we become truly helpful.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, and that's what I saw about Ken, which I love about him so much, was he was a very impersonal, personal person. Um, if that makes any sense.
It does. It does. Yeah.
Impersonal, personal person. He was open to everyone, loving to everyone, kind to everyone. You could really tell he saw you in a much different light for me than I saw myself for sure.
And playful too.
Very personal, very personable, very loving, very open, but also impersonal. Like he didn't make any differences between the people, and he all of his teaching were, stop seeing this difference. Just see the truth about what's here. And so, I can never imagine, as I have seen several Course in Miracles teachers get involved in talking about what's happening in the politics, in the world situation, in Gaza, Israel, all these different things.
Hmm.
Course in Miracles teachers getting involved in making uh, talking about it, as if this was something that truly had a meaning and was really going to hurt people, and that people were really being attacked and or going to be attacked, and fear for the future. And I could just that would be I can never even imagine Ken thinking or saying anything of that nature. uh and he may have when he was younger, but definitely in the later years of his teaching, and everything I've ever heard him teach, I've never heard him attack. And I've listened to hundreds, and I know you too,
Hmm.
hundreds of hours of Ken Wapnick speaking. Never heard him attack or be in denial of the holiness of his brothers. That was just the way he saw things.
Yeah.
So
And it does seem like that the times when he was being playful with people in his academy classes and in different seminars that he was doing, um, oftentimes, well, not often, but I've heard a handful of times at least where he would say things that seemed derogatory, but you could tell he was just teasing and playing with them, and 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 getting basically in a kind way, getting them to look at their egos without any condemnation whatsoever. And so, I mean, the form may be of you know not shaming or blaming condemning, but just pointing out how their ego, like everyone else's ego, is absurd basically, and that's kind of what I get from listening to
yes,
so much of
yes.
that. Yeah,
He was very much
yeah,
very teasing, very open and honest,
right.
but not condemning. And
But he was completely inclusive of everyone's ego. So there's no holds were barred, but there wasn't any attack in what he was saying.
in fact, he laughed a lot, and
Oh, yeah.
that's what I imagine Jesus was like that. And you can read it in the course, and
Hmm.
because you gave a brilliant talk about it in Estes Park
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that was
about
fun. That's on the website. The original talk that Craig
oh,
Villarubia videotaped on acimblog.com, as well as several different subsequent themes carried through in the School for Course in Miracles recordings that I've done. So
I love
yeah,
that. It's so
yeah,
wonderful because,
yeah.
yeah, Jesus is not, he's not condemning. He's just
Oh,
poking. He's
oh
just
yeah,
like, look at here.
yeah.
Look at this silly thing you're doing.
It's a complete lampoon of the ego, because what better to look at without condemning, but just seeing how silly it is, and what prompted that talk in Estes Park about a decade ago was uh, I had so many little smiley faces in the margins of my prior book that I thought, well, I could give a talk just on the humor of the course, and so that's what became that 75-minute talk. And if you just go to acimblog.com and put lampoon in there, you'll find the original talk video, as well as several others that follow
Outstanding.
on from
That's
that.
beautiful.
Yeah, yeah,
I love that because, yeah, that was just so much fun, and a great time was had by all. Believe me, I loved Estes Park, and
that was fun. Yeah, it was a
it
good
was
workshop. Yeah.
really nice workshop.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, so let's see. You want me to read on?
Sure.
Okay, so Jesus has just been telling Helen to tell Bill, don't be afraid of ghosts, and he reminded that he has no past.
Uh-huh.
The return of his will is what he wants. He also told him you can't resign from the sonship, no matter
Hmm.
no matter how much you might want to.
And that last line, no one can accept it but himself. That's true
Yeah,
for all of us. Yeah, we're the chief, I can say it, chief executive officer of our mind. So the buck stops at each person's decision maker.
That's it. Exactly. Which someone told me yesterday, and I do believe it because they know a lot kind of the Ken history, that they used to call it Charlie the Chooser.
Yeah, yeah,
And Gloria was like, yeah, that's not very dignified.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. I've heard that
So,
in
so
several
now they
different
call him the
recordings.
decision maker,
Right.
um, which is both.
I've been calling it the master switch. I think that's another
Ooh,
good metaphor because it's if you think of it, I mean, I'm having an electrical background, electrical engineering background. I was thinking, well, it's like a single pole double throw switch, if that makes any sense to anyone.
it
But
does.
but but what it means is that the switch has two positions. It can either allow current to flow one way, or if switched in the other position, it can allow the current to flow in a different way. And when it flows in the Holy Spirit's position, our inner light bulb, so to speak, lights up. But the the, when we have it in the ego position, it attempts to flow through ego's bulb, but it's burned out. It was burned out from the beginning. But because our imaginations are so powerful, we can imagine in a looking through the glass darkly, as it said, that we've imagined a whole world of space and time, and that's the burnout bulb that we're working with. And so we just have to get our mind back to the master switch, and we get little glimpses of it when we tap it, and it goes into Holy Spirit position, and then we get uncomfortable and say, oh, that's there's no self here, there's no little s self. I think I'll switch it back right away over to the ego position. And like Ken says, don't beat yourself up for that, but just realize that we must have been afraid of the peace that's behind that decision to um, to undo uh, our investment in the actually burned out bulb.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because you're not going to restore that filament. And
No, no, no. It
uh,
never worked. It was the reject from the factory, and but we wired it up anyway,
yep,
and thinking,
zapped it
well, but
good.
I got this. I got my own bulb now. It's my bulb.
Oh
It's
my
may not may,
gosh. Yeah,
may not light anything, but it's my bulb.
that is hilarious. So let's see. So I'm going to continue reading. Two
Sure.
months later, on November 15th, Helen took down the following note from Jesus for herself. It helped her to understand that her attacks on Bill could not be kept separate from others. Her belief that they could be nicely served the ego's purpose of believing that hatred can be justified in certain instances and therefore limited. As we have already observed, to hate one part of the sonship is to hate all parts, including oneself. And
Bingo.
boy, I mean that this is
Mm,
exactly what I've been seeing is that, as upset as, people have been in this country, some people have been in this country for the last few weeks because of this election thing. If you hate one part of the sonship, one member, exclude one member, you're excluding everyone, including yourself. And that's why it's so important that we be inclusive in this love and recognize that everyone here is playing a part. This was a part that was written long ago. It's not something they just made up and said, "Oh, I think I'm going to be this and do this now." It's been in the works. It's been part of the script. And so, you can't, be angry at an actor for playing a bad part, or playing a part of a bad person. The reason the actor is playing the part of the bad person is to move the story along. And the reason that I want the story to keep going is because, I want to have this individual um, uh, expression of love and hate. I can choose, look at and uh, get rid of something that basically murder. Jesus talks to us a lot in the course about our murderous thoughts. All those murderous thoughts are made to keep me in the dream, and so into thinking that I have to do something or can do something. So letting go of that and recognizing that it's a story. I'm playing a part, they're playing a part, we're all playing a part. My part right now is to forgive, to see that everyone is doing exactly what they're here to do, and that they are in a prison that is I'm the jailer. I'm keeping them there by my thoughts.
Mhm.
So if I can let go, excuse me, of those murderous thoughts by recognizing that nothing has happened, no one has done anything, and we're all
Mhm.
innocent, that's accepting the atonement, then I can love that part of the sonship and be grateful for them for showing me this. I would never see it otherwise. And you question, of course, we don't. Jesus tells us not to really analyze why things happen or try to figure it out. But it seems pretty clear to me that the reason that this continues to happen in my dream is because I still want to see guilt. And I
Mhm.
still want to see differences, and I still want to be special. And, all those things, if I didn't want to see that, it would not be happening. And, because this is an individual situation, I have a choice of either being in a world of anger and pain and suffering and murder, or I can be in the real world where everything is joy and love, and it doesn't change my where I am, where I appear to be. I'm not going to poof out of this world, but I can be walking in this world in this peaceful, joyful, loving place and see the love in everything. And that's my choice.
Mhm.
So I think, this statement, as we have already observed, to hate one part of the sonship is to hate all parts, including oneself.
Mhm.
That's absolutely true, I think. So,
Yep, and that's just a dualistic dream that every ego cherishes. Is I was listening to one of Ken's audios this morning while I was out for a walk, and it struck me as like, well, the only true success is a win-win, which includes everyone. But at the same time, the egos, as long as anyone loses, the ego's happy. So if on the surface, we think, well, only if I win and you lose, does the ego, find some kind of, uh, you know, jubilance or whatever for that victory. But if I lose and you win, or I win and you lose, or we both lose, then the ego is happy regardless. So it's basically, the two mutually exclusive thought systems is everyone wins is Holy Spirit's assertion that is really the only possible choice and the only thing that truly is eternal, and everything else is a dream. But the ego's position of if anyone loses, then all is lost. And yet we don't recognize that because ego wants to disguise that and make it a little less obvious. In fact, very very less obvious by its hypnotic, magical, you know, practices of diverting our attention so that we don't really see that if anyone is suffering, uh, which is really impossible in truth, we all suffer. Right?
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And we may not even recognize it, but that internal hate, that buried hatred that is below the surface that we don't see really the motive for it or the reason of it or anything, but we experience it. When I reject my brother, I feel guilt. When I reject any part of myself, I experience guilt. And the guilt is the thing that's causing the problem. If
Hmm.
if I could just stop that, recognize that I have done nothing wrong, they have done nothing wrong, there's no reason to feel guilty, and let go of that guilt, then the suffering disappears.
Hmm.
But until I get to that underlying place of recognizing my own guiltlessness, which is what he's going to talk about here in a minute. When I get to the point where I can recognize my own guiltlessness and that of my brother, then I'm free and the world is free. So that don't think, I'm just feeling bad because I'm feeling bad. Look at it and see where is the lack of love? Where am I reacting with a lack of love to my brother or one of God's creations? And then you'll see, oh, then that's why I'm feeling guilty and that's why I'm suffering right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So, this is Jesus's message to Helen, November 15th. All right. Bill was right in not regarding this as a separate problem, the savage problem of personal rejection. There is no fear in perfect love. You do not want him to feel guiltless, but rejected. This area is the only one in which you want to retain this, but you will not be able to limit it. You will not see his purity until you give up rejection as a weapon against him or against everyone else. You think these are the only alternatives. Be sure to consider why you want to maintain this position. Bill will help you with this.
Yeah. Then we're back to the win, lose, lose, win, or lose, lose, if you think about it. I mean, it's all someone has to be different, or we have to all be separate from our creator and from peace in order for the belief in separation to seem to have some traction. And yet it's all fantasy.
Yeah, yeah, and if you just saw on the day-to-day basis how often you do this, or I could
Mm-hmm.
say you, I don't know you, I know me, and I see how often on the day-to-day I do this, and I want to see people guilty. I want, oh my gosh, you know, my my husband turns on a game show on TV, and I'm looking at it going, they don't want these people to win this money. They're gonna, and I start going into some guilt from some silly thing on TV. It if I spent the day looking at all the times that I am accusing my brother of doing something that is unjust or unloving, unkind, whatever, I'm going to see a lot of my time filled up with these judgments,
Mm-hmm.
and it's anything, a judgment against the weather, or judgment against, whatever it is, it's my desire to have things my way, to be right and not to be happy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Real simple.
Sure is, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'm going to let you read a little bit. My
Okay.
voice is going on me. So
Okay. Okay. I'll just read. I need to leave in about 10 minutes because I'm hosting the School for Course in Miracles class this morning. So
okay.
just a few minutes early today.
Yay.
So yeah, I'll pick up where we left off. As was mentioned, and as Ken commenting again, uh, as was mentioned at the beginning of chapter 6, Bill kept a personal journal during the almost 2-month period spanning parts of August and September 1966. The journal entries fall into the chronological sequence we've been following so far in this chapter and illustrate again the commitment Helen and Bill had made to work together to find a better way of relating. I thus interrupt the narrative of Helen's scribing of the course to present this journal. And then the section's called Bill's Journal. And then Ken continues. Bill's journal notes range from August 11th through September 28th, 1966, when I turned 12. I'm, I'm reasonably sure he shared these with Helen, as it would have been most atypical of him not to have done so, but I cannot be absolutely certain. The entries clearly reflect, as do Helen's letters of the previous year, an unusual willingness and openness to look at the ego without projecting any responsibility for it. Bingo. There's another worthy underline. Unusual willingness and openness to look at the ego without projecting any responsibility for it. Didn't underline it the last time through, but it's getting it now. In addition, They point up the great importance Bill placed on Helen's reactions. This need on Bill's part to have Helen be different from her ego never really left him and became Bill's principal rationale for why their relationship could never truly be healed, nor his own mind for that matter. Helen always felt that Bill did not really understand certain aspects of the course, and his insistence on Helen's shift being a prerequisite for his own would suggest one aspect of this misunderstanding. One can see in these notes, therefore, Bill's continual references to Helen's state of mind and use of quote we unquote and quote us unquote to denote their joint progress or lack of it. He clearly saw their respective salvation paths as being not only intertwined but interdependent. He thus believed that their salvation depended on the other's change of mind. To cite but one example from the journal, Bill wrote this note on September 11th regarding his own response to Helen's great variability in shifting back and forth between the ego's goals of guilt and illusion and the Course's goals of forgiveness and truth. And here's the note. Know that Helen is trying, but find it difficult not to respond to my perception of fluctuations regarding goal direction. So I'm just going to pause right there to comment. And it's just like, well, how many times do we all do that in the course of a day? As we think, well, gee, if the person I'm living with or the person that's in political office in the jurisdiction I believe myself to be in would do or say things differently, or somehow link it my piece to external behaviors of one sort or another, whether it's individual persons or groups of people or corporations or the weather or economic factors or environmental issues or the financial fluctuations, or it could be countless numbers of things. My bodily health, it's so easy to think of our bodies as relating to them as our identity, but they're external to our mind as well from the Course's perspective. So anyway, just seems like this is something that we all do to such an incredible extent, and most of it goes unnoticed and is unconscious, it would seem.
Yeah, but yeah, I do it too all the time. So if only this person would do this, then everything
Right.
would be good.
Exactly. Yeah.
And no, that's everything is good. It doesn't matter what they're doing. Anyway,
Hmm.
continue on.
Sure, sure. As will also be seen, therefore, Bill was always concerned with other people's progress, experiencing it as somehow crucial to his own. Yet forgiveness, A Course in Miracles' central teaching, can only occur in one's individual mind, although this process of healing inevitably occurs in the context of a relationship with another. The guilt in Helen and Bill's individual minds was due to decisions each made to hold on to it. Another telling passage if we just generalize it to the guilt in every individual mind is due to our two decisions each of us make to hold on to it, right? So this decision for guilt and separation was thus not accepted by them as a personal responsibility, but projected onto each other. Therefore, for genuine healing to occur, the projection would have to be undone and responsibility for their misery returned to themselves. Well, there's lesson 5 in a nutshell, right? I'm never upset for the reason I think. I think it's, I'm upset because of something happening in my body or somewhere in my space-time dream of universe. I can attribute a cause or all kinds of causes, a whole ecosystem of causes that are outside my mind, and yet the Course says ideas don't leave their source. They the cause has never left your mind. Yeah, anyway, to finish the paragraph, Ken says, to her credit, Helen always understood this intellectually, although she was never able to consciously apply this principle to herself. Well, doesn't that sound like all of us in, in some ways? And we're all working on it, but and we all will eventually and voluntarily and happily uh, choose to accept that responsibility for ourselves. Right?
Yeah, yeah. And I like it that he says that Helen understood this intellectually, but she wasn't consciously able to apply it to herself. That's, I understand it intellectually too. So I
Right.
definitely see um, it, how it does apply. So anyway, continue.
Sure. I'll read this next entry and probably then sign off after that.
That'll be the end of it. Okay.
This is August 11th, 1966. Recall of events from August 10th. When I saw Helen about 1:30, in parentheses for the first time that day, she appeared particularly radiant. It is startling how much her appearance changes when she is, quote, with it, unquote. This radiance continued throughout the afternoon, although there was a relatively brief period in which she, quote, fogged over, unquote, displaying a marked fear reaction, which briefly altered her appearance. However, she got back very quickly. The problem was in relation to meditation and, quote, asking, unquote, which followed writing a letter regarding Chip's mother. I was aware of being somewhat upset while we were doing this, although pleased to have an opportunity to share in this, quote, miracle, unquote. The changes in Chip's mother are miraculous and demonstrate very powerfully the effects of love. However, I seem to be responding inappropriately to what I perceived as Helen's ambivalence about doing the letter. I suggested adding a statement at the end concerning her, in brackets, Chip's mother, wishes at present to stay in the hospital, which she still regards as her home, and then in brackets, see my comments below. During meditation, I asked why I was having a conflict reaction and received the answer. Quote, you are afraid of release from imprisonment, which is what you were describing in the letter about Mrs. P, in brackets, Chip's mother. This makes good sense, and there is no question that I am afraid of release, although consciously it frequently seems otherwise. It is apparent that I still think the ego has something to offer. Oh boy, and that's true for all of us. Helen emphasized the importance of doing all those things which we have put off, but are still lurking about in our minds. List to be completed in more detail later, and then action. Helen called in evening and mentioned a correction in notes typed earlier in day. Interesting. Bill leaves out a few adjectives and pronouns. I was looking at exactly the page where the correction from, quote, proof, unquote, to, quote, truth, unquote, was indicated. As a matter of fact, I was just about to read that paragraph when Helen called and stated that she thought I was reading these pages. She was right. And the line that jumped out to me in those several paragraphs was, I still think the ego has something to offer. I think if we can look at that completely and see that an ego can really offer us nothing, and accept the idea that the Holy Spirit has a real alternative for us, and trust that we will be guided to that place in our mind. I think that describes every student of this course.
Yeah, I agree with you. Absolutely.
Yep, yep.
And that's, and also feeling guilty for thinking that.
Yeah,
So there we go.
that'll pass. Well,
Yeah.
anyway, thank you so much, Lynn, for another wonderful conversation, and look forward to picking up where we left off next week.
Thank you so much, Bruce. I love you, brother. And
Likewise.
have a great day and wonderful time with the School for A Course in Miracles.
Thank you. Have a great week.